afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I'd like to thank YABLOKA for the invitation to address you today, and also to pay tribute to the laureate of the Prize for Freedom of Liberal International, Grigory Yavlinsky. It was the British Liberal Democrats who proposed him for that. We fought a good fight, and we were very, very pleased that he was awarded that in a ceremony in Berlin a few years back. I have been asked to talk about xenophobia and integration of immigrant communities, and also about youth, the effect of youth on the far-right groups and their influence on disaffected youth, and the awful risk awful riots, in several cities in August 2011. All my remarks will be in a UK context. You have many other people here talking about their countries and the problems existing there. We do have a substantial immigrant communities, starting originally when they came over from the Caribbean in the 1950s to drive our buses and clean our streets, and many of them have remained in their own special areas of our cities. The 60s and 70s and since have seen substantial numbers of Nigerians and other West Africans, Somalis fleeing domestic unrest, and people from the Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. And we also have substantial populations of Greek and Turkish Cypriots, and like all cities in the world, we have a substantial Chinese quarters. All of these, of course, is a legacy of the British colonial history. When we gave them independence, they were all entitled not to stay back at their places, but to come over to us if they didn't like the new governments we had left behind. Recently, the UK has become host to hundreds of thousands of East and Central Europeans, mostly from the EU. My own personal trainer is a Czech. Leicester is expected to become our first city with a majority non-indigenous population. There will be several others following, especially in the north part of our country. Some immigrant communities have thrived. Indians are very strong in the media, medical sector, legal and the accountancy professions. The Jewish people have flourished. But Bangladeshis, Somalis, Pakistanis and Nigerians and Cypriots are mostly stuck in the lowest part of the economy. We have a severe problem with gang culture. Young people, mostly unemployed or failing to attend their schools, have founded violent groups, mostly based on ethnic or what we call postcode, or even the same, on tribal loyalties. They account for much of the drug trafficking and theft in our cities. Black on black stabbings and shootings are far too common. And interracial violence, thankfully, is quite rare, although racism certainly exists. There is the usual fear of foreigners taking our jobs, but this is mostly confined to the poorer working class and the unemployed. Not surprising, since 9/11 and the London bombings, and attempted bombings the following year, there is plenty of Islamophobia. People are scared of the young men who have attended jihadist training camps in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And they dislike seeing young British women wearing the hijab and the burqa, although we haven't gone as far as the French in that matter. The concept of multiculturalism has become discredited. All of our political parties and most of our community leaders preach integration these days. And there is a major campaign to restrict future entry to those who have got a good knowledge of English, and to teach elder existing residents the English language so that they do actually speak it at home. Many intercity schools can boast that their pupils speak more than 40 different languages in their homes. Is there a potential backlash to this? We do have two far-right parties. The British National Party, the BNP, which has a few councillors, a couple of MEPs, but no one in Parliament, as our electoral system discriminates against small parties. And then the English Defence League, who seem to be as much against Scots as they are about anyone else, the English Defence League, which has so far a very limited input. Both of these political parties contain criminal and thuggish elements, and intellectuals they are not. However, membership consists mostly of people in their late 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s. The young do not seem to be affected by these people at all. Our youth is largely disaffected in general and reject all political parties, including liberals. The majority do not bother to vote, even the well-educated ones. And this, I believe, is a real danger for our society and democracy in general. Our conservative partners are mostly anti the European Union, and they have a rival party called the United Kingdom Independence Party. They seem to be the non-thuggish extreme right, but they do not preach racism, although they had had to expel quite a few of their early members who were genuine racists. They are the respectable face of right-wing nastiness. The BNP and EDL are thought of as thugs and criminals and do not really attract many voters. As I said before, the disaffected young in the inner cities belong to gangs and take direct action to achieve their own goals. These will be economic, and also they want to obtain what they call respect. The consensus in my country is that the riots, which we had in August 2011, had nothing to do with political extremism. They were spontaneous. They were originally a reaction to the shooting by the police of a man of mixed race in Tottenham, a chap called Mark Duggan, and he himself had a criminal record. The riots started in Tottenham, and young people, and only 5% of all rioters in the UK were over 40, began to commit criminal damage, arson, and above all, looting. Shops with goods such as mobile phones, computers, TVs, and household goods were particularly targeted. Gangs of youths in many parts of London, Birmingham, Manchester, Salford, Glasgow, and elsewhere put on hoods and balaclavas and went on the rampage. Many were filmed by CCTV cameras, but many more were filmed by their own and other people's mobile phones. And of the 3,100 people who were arrested by a specially formed 450-person police force, they were identified and convicted in this way. Social media, notably BlackBerry Messenger and Twitter, played a large part. Some people were later convicted of encouraging riots on Twitter, even though they themselves didn't even participate. Some 70% of the people who were convicted of crimes arising out of the riots already had a criminal record, 70%. These were not, therefore, politicians. Where were the BNP and EDL in all of this? Well, not on the side of the rioters. They did get involved in some cities with vigilante groups formed to protect private property. But there were no clashes in which they were involved, and the unrest has not increased their level of support at all, and certainly they are not at all attractive to the young. This is not to say that the London riots do not give us cause for considerable concern. We have far too many young people, most but not all from single-parent homes, with no male role model at home, who are uneducated, unemployed, and frankly unemployable in most cases, with no prospect, no moral compass, and so disaffected with society that they have no respect for property rights. Looting for many was great fun, and something different to do on warm August evenings. There were a few cases of people with good educations and responsible jobs who joined in, but they were the exception to the rule. Our police force was taken by surprise and did not respond in sufficient numbers for about 3 days, and as soon as they really came there in good numbers, it stopped. But there were heroes too. There was the Pakistani man, whose son was killed with 2 other young men in a hit-and-run accident, which involving looters, and who persuaded his neighbours not to take retaliation against the neighbouring white population, but to stay behind and protect their property. A man greatly respected throughout the country. And there were other areas too. There was a big movement in London of the brooms. People came out with brooms into the attacked areas to clean up, to join the local residents in cleaning up. And it became a big symbol of London, the London of the brooms, immediately afterwards. So there was a real citizen feeling. The Liberals have got a major task to engage these disaffected youths. And Liberal Democrats in government had the chance to do something profound about it, and we are making a start on that. Thanks.